has been interrupted. Life has been disturbed in so many different aspect and so many different avenue that the word normal has been changed, or not necessarily the definition of it, but the expectation of normality has been changed, because we started using words like the new normal because life is not the same. It hasn't been the same, and it probably will not be the same ever again. So whatever is today, today will be different, and the day after that will be different from the previous. Um, I want to tell you a little bit about my our story and how different the difference that we see and experience for us was concluded with an amazing, um, lively reminder of the fact that we were blessed. Okay. About 12 and a half years ago, we are, um, well, maybe a little bit back more, yeah, almost 13 years ago. We found my wife announced and share with me that she was pregnant. So, of course, we said we were pregnant, but we know the truth. She was. Um, and it started out for me personally from a unprepared place, right? It's not like you can ever be fully prepared to have children, to raise children. But ultimately, when she shared that news, I felt so ill prepared for this life changing aspect of our living. Because back, with that, we were living in Chicago. We rented a studio apartment from my mother-in-law, and we were staying there. I was working with a temp agency, kind of waiting for ministry to come together and for things to happen, and in such a way for us. You know, the news of having a child was not at the right time. It wasn't. It was at the unexpected time, as I said, or often, or these kind of interviews, and a couple of them started panning out well, then didn't, and we head to this last one, and really in my mind was, this is it. If this one didn't work out, I will go to the temp company that I was working with, which they were very much interested in hiring me full time, and matching whatever. And so I said, if this doesn't work out, I'm going to commit to this company that I was working with, which was something that I was good at, kind of help desk, providing technical support. I was into computers a lot. And so got to that church, had a great weekend, interview process, and felt really good, and felt confident that this would work out. And eventually the job came through, and I went back. I remember going back to my boss at the time at the company that I was working with, and saying, listen, this is what's going to happen. And I remember them saying, whatever they're offering you, will match it, um, which which felt pretty good, because I wanted, it makes you feel like you are or were wanted. And so we were there, and in that place. So we accepted the church because that's our calling, n- really what we pursued in our lives. So we said yes. That was August 2008. We were supposed to start August 20th that year. And so the week prior, we had left everything out of in Missouri. Many of you who are watching or will watch this will remember our story, because in that trip, so we rented a U-Haul to pack up everything in Missouri, to go back to Chicago, then to drive from Chicago to Syracuse. And we got to Missouri, started loading up, and as we're kind of wrapping things up, my wife began to experience this extensive bleeding that at first we really didn't know what to do, but God somehow, I love that, right? Somehow for us, because we don't understand it, we gotta put a kind of explanatory aspect to it. So God, as we're kind of wrapping up, pulling in into the place where we had to pick up a last few things, a friend of ours, so from another church we were working with in Missouri, pulled right behind us. And as we're loading, and immediately my wife begins to bleed, he happened to have been to be a doctor. In fact, a neo doctor. I believe he helped and did a lot of mission. Dr. Ross, thank you. I don't think I've ever said thank you. Grateful for him. And so he's there and immediately started to care for her. For my wife, and his wife was also there, and blood was everywhere. It felt like, okay, this is dangerous. Um, he was, he kind of have some expectation of what was going on, but he tried to keep his cool so that we did not panic. He didn't want to, but I'm watching his wife, and she did not, exudes the same level of confidence. And so here we are, and Dr. Ross calls the hospital immediately, and identify himself and say, "I'm bringing a patient. Here's what's happening. Here's what's going on." And so we got in and immediately gets rushed into the ER, and my wife is being taken care of, and nothing is happening. Nothing is, and finally they said, "Okay, we have to admit her," and in my mind, I'm like, "Oh, patch her up, give us something, and let's go." It can't be that bad, because I didn't understand the severity of the situation. And so, doctors basically say, "Okay, we'll have to admit her and see where we go from there." All right, so we are admitted, and we are in the hospital, and I am lost because we have most of our college friends. We went to school in Missouri. Most of our college friends are not there, and because they graduated with us or prior to, my wife graduated a few months before the previous year, and so here I am. Here we are, kind of really in the resonance of, um, I guess, the desert, because the friends that we've had were the friends from the church we're working with, Discovery Church. Um, so Max, Russ, their wives, and some of the other folks there. And finally, late night, we found out that there was a torn placenta, that the embryonic fluid that was supposed to be at a certain level was dropped drastically. And I remember the neonatal crew they came in and hesitantly trying to have this conversation with me about what could be happening. And so I remember them giving me these very specific details as to uh, what would happen. So they said, "All right, at this rate, the way that things are going right now, you need to make a decision. Okay, here's the decisions you're gonna have to make. Now, if we feel that we are going to lose the baby, do we have permission to try to revive and do whatever we can to do that? And that also include the fact that this baby is about 5 months old." And so nowhere near ready. So about the 25, 26 weeks. I don't remember exactly. um, and if we try to deliver this baby, here are two things you could be expecting. One, the baby could be dead. Maybe there was three. But if the baby survive, there is a 95% chance that this baby would be brain dead, that there would be not enough development to happening that would cause the baby to thrive. And so you would have to deal with that the rest of your life, or the rest of this baby's life. And so, um, you know, they left me, and I am at this place trying to decide and trying to think what's going on, and my wife is on the bed in excruciating amount of pain, that cannot be fully described or could fully understood by me because I'm not going through that. The doctors are in and out, the nurses are in and out, and trying to figure out things. And finally, the doctor, after a few hours, the doctor leaves. In fact, he comes and said, we're leaving, I'm leaving, and I'm going to a Bible study. Is it okay if I bring this up to Bible study friends and we pray for you? And I said, absolutely. And so, of course, he goes. And really, he goes, and I did not know this until afterwards. He left without the expectation that there would be anything that medically would be able to be done to get this baby out, in a healthy way, or that this baby would survive. In fact, he told one of the nurse the baby would not make it the night, make it through the night. And and the pain continues for my wife. I remember Max Jennings comes in back again with, I believe Russ was with him, um, and did not have any anointing oil. So he used some of the lotions that was there, prayed over it, and anointed and prayed over my wife and us through this. And they left, and we are my wife is strapped in with the baby monitor that's there and the heartbeat monitor, and and I told him to keep the monitors loud so I can always hear the heartbeat because I want to know what's going on. And of course, we spent that night in the hospital. Really did not have any expectation that really did not know what to expect. So I called. I remember the first person I called was my mother, and I remember being on the phone with my mom saying, "Mom, I'm gonna lose my baby," and that was kind of this gut wrenching realization that um, this was going to be rough. This was rough. And it's not the physical pain that my wife was dealing with. Now all of a sudden, this unexpected blessing that maybe at the time I was not ready for, and now here is this blessing at the risk of being taken away, being lost, and I am at a loss. I have a sense of um, you know devastation that I am experiencing, unlike anything else. And so I called my mom and said, okay, all right, here's what's happening, and my mom said, okay, all right, don't worry about it, go hang up. And of course, what she does is this. Um, she started calling people. And so, of course, for me on my side, she has her friend, and I started calling my friends. So I had friends in Chicago praying, friends in New Jersey praying, friends in Syracuse, new people that were going to be friends praying. So I remember calling my boss and saying, and Noni and Hayward saying, we're not going to make it. Here's why: because we are at the hospital right now in Missouri, and here's what's happening. And so the church started to pray. So I had people praying for us all over the place. Um, Finally, the doctor, it's late night. My wife is still in pain. And one of the nurse called the doctor and said, Doc, is it okay if we give her something for the pain? Initially, he had said no because, the pain was a indicator of things are not only not okay, but in a sense, okay, because if there is pain, there is something that's active. Um, and so, when she called and she said, okay, because at that point he gave up, not in a bad way, I guess, with what he understood and what he knew. He gave up and said, okay, because she's probably not going to, baby's not going to make it through the night. And I believe they gave my wife some medicine to ease the pain, the vomiting, all the strain of that was happening. Um, until my wife finally were able to sleep, and I was able to sleep lightly because I'm listening for the heartbeat. And I remember reading and praying Psalm 139, 13, 14. You created me in my mother's womb. I know that full well. You knit me together and all that. And so I remember, you know, really surrendering this to God. And I remember a question that came to my mind: if we were to lose this baby, how would that impact my faith? Right. And I had to resolve almost immediately that would not change. I remember that moment, that and the great tragedy and the great loss, that as hurt as I would be, and my faith in God and understanding who He is would not necessarily change. So my wife made it through the night, and again, the goes back and do the embryonic tests. Nothing had changed. I believe it was kind of throughout the day, throughout the next day, same thing. There was no improvement, and I remember, kind of in this act or this two dichotomy of life where we're in Missouri and we need to be in Syracuse, and I can't be in Syracuse and my wife in Missouri, and we can't, we won't be released. The doctors basically said we can't let you go. We can't even get you a helipad to Syracuse because of the severity of this drama, this traumatic situation. So no, you can't leave. And I remember they're saying, okay, well, if things continue to just be stable, the best that we can do is get you to 34th week. And so, which was about, yeah, it was about 10 weeks later. So she was about 24, 25 weeks. And so that was their goal. And I'm thinking, to stay in Missouri for 10 weeks, where we have no home, we have really no friends that we can say, "Hey, we'll crash here for this." We had none of that, and we just started supposed to be starting this new job in Syracuse, and her family's in Chicago, and my family's in New Jersey, and so we are in a place where we are completely alone for the most part. I remember reaching out to my best friend Steve and saying, "Steve, here's the situation. Here's what I may need to do because I can't just sit back and not do this job that I've been called to, already on payroll, very gracious church that I've been waiting for. And so here's what we're gonna have to do. If I'm gonna go to Syracuse, and when I go, I'm gonna need for you to come." And of course, they were like, "Whatever you need, I'm there." So after a couple of days in the hospital, I was with, well, I was talking to my wife, and I told her, I said, "Okay, we need to make a decision," And so I kind of told her my plan as to what we would need to do if I was to fly back and forth from Syracuse um, to Missouri. How would that work out? Would that be beneficial? So we're finally, my wife comes to the agreement. Okay, yeah, that would work. Let's do that. Let's figure out how we make that work. And we're getting ready for me to leave, and on a Monday, and Tuesday morning, the doctors came in, and they are asking how you doing. We're like, yeah, and of course, by now word is out that I may be leaving, and so one of the doctors came in and said, "So I understand that you're leaving, and I said, "Yes, we have to get to the next phase, go to Missouri, and be there." And and I said, kind of jokingly, um, it would be nice if I can take my wife with me. And the doctor said, "Well, stick around. Maybe we'll figure how we can do that." And I think that was his kind of sarcastic response in a way, not really knowing what was happening. So he said, "You know what? Let's do another test to see how the embryonic fluid is going. Is it filling back up? And so they take her back, and I don't remember the levels. They take her downstairs. We went downstairs to get checked. So she has these sonogram, and they're doing all the testing. And finally, the tech reported, or at least I don't remember if it was the tech or the doctor that says, "Okay, oh wow, the levels are back to normal." All right. So if it was at supposed to be at 9, it was about a 6 when we were first got in, 7 at the most during the stay. And between that 6, 7, it jumped back to a normal rate, 9 something. And so we are back upstairs, and the doctors come in and finally said, um, all right, all right, we're going to release you two. I'm like, wait, for real? He's like, yeah, we're gonna let you go, but take it easy. So we left the hospital. I remember actually one of my favorite part of this story was the doctor after after the test. I said, Doc, how are things going? He goes, Ichi Peachy, right? She said, oh, everything is well, and so I am elated, and we get back on our in the truck, drove to Chicago, load up, and made our way towards Syracuse. And his instruction was, as soon as you get there, bed rest, get to a hospital. Because she's a high risk pregnancy at this point, and so she has to be monitored. And so we did that. So fast forward a few weeks into this transition where we go from one extreme to a moment of, I guess, of caring. And my wife had a few scares along the way because, again, high risk pregnancy. The baby was, I think, we there was a scare on Halloween that the baby was coming. That didn't happen, and so we are in the middle of November, kind of really what we've been through this year. The middle of November, I developed this massive abscess in my inner thigh, and for me, I can manage pain very well. I try to, at least. And so I am there navigating through this pain, and I'm working with youth. And I remember sitting on the couch, and one of the guys, I remember if it was Sam, I think it was Sam Garofano. Okay. Um, 'Cause that's how we were. And he kind of came from a nice distance and just jumped and sat on my lap. And so that abscess, which was already painful, is now 100 times more painful. And so I was barely walking then, and now I can't even get up from the couch. So after the night's over, I kind of endured through it, and I went home, and my wife was like, "You're going to the hospital," and so I did. Finally, went to the emergency room and got checked in, and got to look at him like, "Whoa, there's a problem there." I'm like, "Duh," um, and so in the process of dealing with the abscess, they dropped the bomb on me that said, "Hey, congratulations, you have diabetes." Right? I didn't know I had diabetes. I knew there were problems because there were symptoms. There were diabetic symptoms in my life over the years, right? The constant urination, the constant thirst. So there were some strong um, symptoms, but I didn't know, and I didn't want to know until that moment. And so when they said, and they checked my sugar level, and it was at a 14 A1C level, and so which is unheard of. And so of course immediately they started giving me insulin. They started responding to that. But the biggest part was now they still had to do something with this abscess. And so they, after a few days in the hospital, they had to surgically operate and try to remove um, the pus, the mess that's in there, to bring that. And so while I'm in the hospital, let's say on a Monday, um, On that Tuesday, my wife is admitted to another hospital, which is not wasn't too far, but I am at University Hospital and she is at Krause. For those who are in Syracuse would know that, but it's two close hospitals, but enough of a distance. And so I am admitted. My wife is admitted, about to potentially have a baby because they brought her in early so that she can be induced for labor. So that Tuesday she's there, and at Wednesday I'm having that surgery. I don't remember if it was that Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm having surgery. Um, and so they finished with surgery and said, okay, you need a 3 to 5 day recovery. And so we won't let you move. And so I'm on Tuesday. I am on Skype. Maybe the surgery was on Tuesday. I don't remember if it was Tuesday or Wednesday. Maybe it was Tuesday. I'm on Skype with my wife. We're talking, and Wednesday, the induction, or I guess the inducement, however, she was been induced, and and that process has started. So Tuesday, Wednesday, she's there, and I'm in my side of the hospital. She's at the other hospital, and Thursday, Thanksgiving Day, things are progressing rapidly. Uh, and I've had this conversation with my doctors, with my surgeon the night before, the day before, and say, okay, hey, you do what you got to do, but do whatever you need to do to get me out by Thursday so I can be in the hospital with my wife. And they said, there is no way that this is going to happen, right? If we surgery is scheduled, surgery has happened, we can't release you. Yeah, I said, no, you don't understand. My wife is having our baby first, and I cannot be absent from it. And so I am really at this place where, again, my wife is alone. We had a friend, Madeline, was there. Thiemann was there with her, was a member of the church, also a nurse, overseeing some of the staff there, and so so she was there. But I'm at the hospital and I can't be there for my wife. I can't connect with her. I can't hold her hand. Um, and so finally, Thursday morning, the doctors came in and they did what they had to do, look and say, okay, all right, so here's what we're going to do. Not because you're ready, but because we understand the situation. And so they said, we're going to release you so that you can be with your wife. We don't want you to miss out on being present for the birth of your child. And so they said, okay, we'll give you instruction on how to take care, how to pack and unpack the cut, um, the incision, so that we can make sure that it's not infected. So they did that. They talked me through how to do it. They said, okay, we're gonna release you, and so don't drive, call a cab. And so of course, for me, as soon as they released me, my car was parked in the garage. Went to my car, in my car, and Um, drove to the other hospital and was there for my wife that afternoon. But nothing was happening, right? Thanksgiving Day, I just been released from the hospital. My wife is now in the hospital, eating on nothing but ice chips. I don't remember who brought in some food, but somebody brought some food, and I'm eating a little bit of it. And my wife is chewing on some ice chips, which she reminds me often. Um, But as we're there, again, I'm just coming from my own hospital stay. Madeline said to me, "Hey, Papa Bear, go ahead and go home, get some rest, and I will call you as soon as something starts to happen." And so I listened to her, went home, and got into bed, rest for a little bit, and got a phone call around 8, 9 o'clock. I don't remember what time, and the call was, "Papa Bear, it's happening. Something's moving. Let's go." And so I got back in my car and started driving, headed back to the hospital. So from the time I got there, really the labor pain was increasing, but not to the point where we can say, okay, hi, we can expect to have a baby in the next 20 minutes, half an hour, or even an hour. They were very far, few apart. Um, but as things progress around 10:30, 11 o'clock, my wife really began to experience some immense amount of pain. Things were moving. The doctor came in, Robert, I'd like to say Dr. Robert, I don't remember his last name, came in, did the cervix checks. Of course, the nurses would do their parts, and he came in around 11 something and said, "Okay, yeah, no, we still got a while more to go." Okay. Now, a couple of things. This is still premature, right? It's 34th week, not 40, so 6 weeks early. There are a lot of things. So the ROGAM, all of that stuff's been taken care of. Now it's just a matter of, okay, how will this baby be born? Will there be sufficient strength and energy and care? So all of that is in play. But the doctor comes in and say, okay, she's not ready, and he goes on to take care of the patient, of course. So he's in there delivering other babies, and you know, around 11:30 or something, my wife is like, okay, it's time. And the nurse is there, is like, no, 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 it's not time yet. No, no, no. She said it's time, and so she started pushing. She started. Well, she's been told not to push, and so, but she's there. She's getting to that place. And as this a little bit, as they went and trying to find a doctor, my wife is ready, and doctor's nowhere to be found, right? Or he's busy with other patient. So the nurses really had to help my wife deliver the baby. But here's what's cool about this. Okay. Um, I feel a little bit more freedom in this to talk a little bit more because instead of trying to edit a video, trying to keep it short, I can put this on and whoever's watching is watching. Um, so we are in this process. My wife is ready to go, and baby's coming. Doctor's not there, and we are moments away. And as she's getting ready, it's 11:30, 11:45, 11:50. At 11:56, we hear this cry, baby's born. Okay. This very baby that we were told probably would not make it to 34. Um, and if the baby were to survive, the baby would have a 95% chance of being um, having some brain issues, brain defect. But at 11:56 on Thanksgiving Day, 12 years ago, we didn't know what we were gonna get. We didn't know if it was a boy or a girl. In fact, none of our kids. We didn't know until they came out and said, "Ta-da! I'm a boy. Ta-da! I'm a girl." We had more "Ta-da! I'm a girl" than we did have "I'm a boy." And so we found ourselves in this situation at 11:56, able to celebrate the birth of our daughter and welcome her into our world. Right, 11:56 p.m. on Thanksgiving, and that is I always remember that. Not one, thank God, I was able to be there, but there were a lot more significance to that because of all the things that we went through to get to this point, it was more likely that, that we can go through all of this and miss the significance and miss the opportunity, the blessing that comes as a result of it. And so um, I remember reflecting on this afterwards, first by myself, and then I started talking to my friend Jeff, Reverend Jeffrey Jean Paul, and we were talking. He's always so good at kind of hitting the nail on the head, and I'm reflecting. I'm like, wait, maybe I did something wrong. I sinned. I maybe I shouldn't have responded to this job because as soon as I said yes, this is where everything started falling apart, and I was in a place where woe is me. How God forgive me because my understanding of God was so flawed because, we find that God is punishing me for something that I did by causing me and my wife to go through these things. And, that wasn't the case. And the reason I can say that is what happened at 11:56, 12 years ago, right? The odds are stacked against, everything that we can hope for. But here we find ourselves holding a blessing. And so, um, Jeff quickly kind of give a brief summary of our conversation. And so he um, talked about Paul being at the center of God's will and yet finding himself beaten, imprisoned, stoned to death, shipwreck, snake beaten. So having gone through all of that was not a negation or a takeaway from the fact that he was in the center of God's will. Because a lot of time we think if I'm in the center of God's will, then everything is gonna work out well. Then I am going, life is going to be beautiful, and we won't have all these challenges that we're or dealing with, or then if I'm dealing with it, then that must be out of God's will. That was kind of my thinking. I am out of God's will, and therefore these things are happening. If I was in God's will, then these things would not happen. And so he reminded me of that understanding. And he said to me, Ricardo, from now on, you will have this constant reminder to be thankful, right? Michaela has always been my reason to give thanks. Not the only reason, right? Um, every Thanksgiving, I am reminded with this visible, with this tangible, with this real life example of God's amazing, um, generous love for me and for my wife and for our family. All right. Um, we didn't think, we weren't told, we weren't expecting that this would be 12 years later and we would reflect on this. Okay, because at the moment, the pain was the pain that we were experiencing was the biggest thing that we can experience. And so, to have that as a culmination of this reminder to give thanks. And so I think of that, every year, for me more specifically, um, but I think of it now, especially with so many of us unable to do what we've been accustomed to do. We want to be with family today and Thanksgiving Day, and we can't because of Corona, because of social distance, because of the rate of growth of this virus, and so we have to keep our distance. And we haven't had a year much of celebration that happened. So churches had to be closed. We couldn't do certain things, or birthday celebration had to be kind of drive-by celebration. The wedding had to be canceled, postponed, or rescheduled. Graduation had to be done so differently. And so we can stack up all the woes, all the things that were supposed to be something that did not work out the way we wanted it to be, and we can stack those up so high that they become the night or the darkness that we dwell in. But I want to tell you, because I've experienced it, and I'm not telling you because I'm not going to say, all everybody's experience will end the same way. But for us, we have this constant reminder, and perhaps you do too. You have a reminder. You have something in your life, or some things in your life that you've, that started out not so well, and somehow where it ends up, it's beautiful. And so I'm grateful to have a 12-year-old smart, a 12-year-old creative, a 12-year-old funny, amazing um, gift reminder of what it means to be thankful. That it's not just the stuff that we go through and find ourselves in the woes, but at the end of it, there is joy. There at the end of it. In fact, her middle name is Joie, Joi, joy. Um, and so, um, scripture, I can think of several scripture, but one of the ones that we were discussing last night was this aspect of discipline versus punishment. We use this quote that says, "Discipline is simply whatever God chooses to use to help us grow in godliness." And sometimes what He uses is the painful experiences of our lives to bring us to a point and further on in our own growth towards godliness. All right. In everything, give thanks. You know, what are some opportunities that perhaps you missed because you saw the virus or you saw the limitations and thought, um, no, that's just bad. We miss opportunities because we focus on the bad and not see perhaps God is at work in it. And so, if you ask me at the hospital in Missouri, was God at work? I would say yes, but I wouldn't necessarily believe it in the moment. I would say yes as the right answer, not because I believed it. When I was in one hospital and my wife at the other hospital, would I have said God is at work in that? Probably not. But here I am 12 years later looking back and look at all these moments, all these interaction, all these supposedly bad situations that God caused to work for my good and for our good. So, she was the first, and now God has blessed us with four more, and we are grateful for each and every one of them. I did not think we would have any more kids from that because the situation that we went through with the first was so hard that I was scared for my wife, saying that I don't want her to go through that ever again. When Kayla was born, 11:56 on Thanksgiving, November 27th, on Thanksgiving Day, 4.5 pounds. Of course, she had to stay in the hospital for a few days, a week, about a week. Then finally, we were able to get her home. And 12 years later, she is submitting a long list of things that she wants for her birthday. And if I could, I would give her absolutely everything on that list because she is God's blessing for us, and we are grateful for her. So, almost an hour now as I've been talking. I can't. I'm a preacher for real because I can't do short stuff, short talks. Um, but I do hope that you will find yourselves rejoicing in the blessings and the celebrations that you have as people of God. Even if you're not a person of faith, you watch this and you hear about this or whatever. Not all bad or punishment. Not all the things that you go through is for your detriment. Um, and so I think if we hang in there long enough, learn from what we go through, we come on the other side better. Hopefully, that's all of us. Hey, God bless you. Thank you for hanging out with me today. And I just wanted to put this together and hope that it was an encouragement and a blessing to you. So if you have any questions, feel free to write a comment, write a question. If you remember these stories, feel free to um, put your own comments there and versions of what you may have heard, what you've experienced there. So I hope you enjoy. Have a blessed Thanksgiving. Um, and let's hope for no, I'm not even going to finish that sentence. Let's make the best of what we have. All right. God bless you all. Take care.